This podcast is sponsored by Terraform Development is an engineering and architectural design studio company located in Flagstaff, Arizona. Co-owner and founder Eddie Kalnimtua supports the Hopi way of life and supports the next generation, including hiring Hopi professionals, individuals like Dr. Brianne Laban from the village of Tewa. Contact Terraform at 928-864-5022 extension 1. Or you can email them at info@terra4orm.com or visit their website at www.terra4orm.com to learn more about Terraform Development. They can design your next home, manage your next construction project, or fly their latest drone equipment to get aerial views of your project.
Welcome back, everybody. It's a great Wednesday afternoon or morning. I don't know when you guys listen to the podcast, but welcome everybody to Carl and J-Man Saves the World. My name is Carl and this is J-Man.
Yo, what's going on?
Oh man, so last episode that we talked about was, what did we talk about last episode?
Leadership.
And in Haute-Ville, I guess
somebody got upset with you?
No, in
Haute-Ville. They tried to throw you out the village?
No. But they elected me as one of the village board members.
Did they really?
They did.
No kidding.
Yeah, they elected me, but I didn't accept.
Oh, thank God.
I know, right? You probably hear like you know what we should do on Wednesdays is make it Feasel Day.
I order everybody in the village to listen to our podcast.
It is a demand that you listen to my podcast in Haute-Ville.
And everybody donate $1.
If everybody donated $1 in Haute-Ville, we would have $297.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. I think that's how many people are in Haute-Ville. But anyway, we are back. I mean, we're back for the second episode here.
Second episode for season 2.
Oh man, it's great, and I love doing this here. I love making you guys laugh. So,
and today's a real special episode because I think since season 1 we've been promising special guests, and today we're actually going to deliver.
Yeah, we are. We're gonna bring on special guests.
A lot of it was just a demand. Can we decrease Carl's speaking time on the podcast? And so, we thought, how can we fill that void? Let's bring on some special guests.
Hey, my voice is one of the sexiest voices out there.
It's not. I don't care what Soul says.
Soul still thinks I'm cool.
I find it disturbing that Soul would tell you that you have a sexy voice as well.
All right. So let's go ahead and jump into these topics here.
And so today, I think that, we really, well, at least in terms of what we've been speaking on before through season 1 and then going on into season 2, it's kind of just really been you and my perspective, the male perspective in terms of how we've been talking about Hopi, all the different components of Hopi. But I think that, one of the things that's been missing and we wanted to deliver that today was the women's perspective.
Yeah.
The women's perspective of our society because, we're a matrilineal society. And that's the name of the episode today is Matrilineal Society. And so we really wanted to pay homage to all of the Momoyam, all the Mamante and all the Manayam out there, especially those, that listen to our podcast and kind of get at least their perspective, what their experiences might be out there to the rest of the world about, what it is that our lifestyles out here out in Hopi.
So the women play a very, very important role here on the Hopi Reservation. So a lot of that... Whose phone is that? Is that my phone?
I think that's your phone.
That's my phone, right? Well, this is the things that you have to go through with the podcast here.
This is when you work with somebody like Carl. Get it together.
Oh, shoot. It was our guest. But
We'll call them back.
We'll call them back. But anyway, you know, where was I? The women's role. The women's roles play a huge role here on the Hopi reservation. So, you know, we as men, especially during ceremonies and during different events, we rely on the women so much to, you know, cook and clean and help around the house. But that's, you know, that's just part of being Hopi, I guess. So it's just part of being a Hopi woman in that role, right?
You sound like a real caveman there.
I'm a Hopi man.
No, you know, for at least I guess for me, the way that I think about it is that for us to have the abilities, or even, you know, just our existence, you know, that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for women and all of the roles that they play. And, you know, I've always thought that it's kind of a unique, I guess, context, because then, like, we've talked about it before, because then like that, like all of those things that you mentioned, cooking and cleaning and keeping the house, tending to the children, I think that, you know, when you talk about more of I guess a contemporary train of thought, that, you know, those ideas really are kind of old school, or, you know, some people probably feel like that those types of ideas don't necessarily belong anymore in society, that, you know, women should be allowed to do a lot of the things that the men do. But even in this day and age on the reservation, that those really are the roles that young girls are taught, and they're taught that those are their duties. And so a lot of that type of upbringing is still prevalent. It's still present within our villages, and in terms of like how we rear our children. So who were some of the prominent women in your life that you can think of when you were growing up?
Well, you know, if you talk to any Hopi man around here, he's always going to say his mom or his sisters, or, you know, his aunties, his kias, you know, and I'm basically the same way, you know, where I see my so'o as a woman who sort of beats me sometimes because I act like an idiot. But besides the point,
I believe that.
Besides the point there, you know, So'o is like this 1950s Leave It to Beaver kind of woman, because she was brought up in that era there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So she basically is like that woman who's like, you know, I got to please my man. So she's always trying to please Kwa in a way to say that I'm the woman of this house. I'm the sole keeper here. Listen to me while I'm giving you, you know, donuts for dessert, pretty much.
Awesome. Was there anybody else, or was it mostly just So'o?
I think it was just mostly So'o, because my sister has not done anything. She's a piptika. So she only comes during dances.
No comment.
So, Courtney, if you are listening to this right now, don't call me because I won't answer. I'm sorry, Court. Don't hit me. Please don't hit me.
Courtney, if you want me to hold him, well, you know. I think at least for me, you know, like that very is true, because even, you know, when you're a young child, and I think that we mentioned this previous in an episode, that, you know, when you're at probably your youngest of ages that you can recall memory, maybe 3 or 4 years of age, that you're really, I guess, kind of left with the women.
Yeah.
Because your fathers or your uncles, anybody that's older, that's a male relative that, you know, you could look up potentially too as a type of role model, they're out of the house. They're usually in the fields doing field work, or during ceremony time, they're in the kivas preparing for the different types of ceremonies within our calendar system that we have. So as children, we're often left with either our mothers, our so'os, or even our big sisters. And so those are some of the people that I really remember growing up as a kid. You know, my mother. And, you know, a lot of it was my so'o. And then, you know, I think I've mentioned before my cousin, the one that I went pee with in the outhouse. And so, you know, she was my cousin, but actually she's my sister too.
Okay.
Because we're the same clan. And then I had an older sister too that I really admired. But because, you know, you kind of at least witness what it is that they did in their day-to-day lives. And so a lot of the things that I recall seeing them doing, at least in terms of work, was like preparing food.
Okay.
And so sometimes, you see them preparing the traditional foods.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of us kids really remember sitting in the tumtsoki, watching either our so'os, our mothers, or our sisters make biki. And so you see them kind of doing that type of thing. And then preparing other types of food, katuki we talked about before, so miviki, those types of foods. So those are some of the things that I really remember witnessing them do. And then, for my soul, I think a lot of it too, like cleaning corn, watching them clean corn was always a big thing. Or even when there was a butcher party, when people were butchering, whether that was a sheep or a cow, that was always something too that I remember kind of being with the women as a kid and watching them do those types of things.
See, I wasn't brought up where So'o took me to different places like that. It was always because I was with my kwa at the field and with my taha crying at the field as well too. So, taha, if you're listening to this, yes, I cried, when I pasalawa at your field. So,
and he hasn't changed very much too. He still cries to this day.
I still cry when I go to the field. But anyway, when talking about how important women here in the Hopi society is, it is a really big role that women play. And we are very appreciated because they're the ones who hold the household. They're the ones who take care of the children. They're the ones who bring up the children, even if the male part is just there to provide for them. So, Hopi is one of the Native American societies that have that what is it, maternalistic kind of viewpoint,
matrilineal viewpoint,
yeah.
And so I guess, with that word, matrilineal, and that's kind of an important thing about Hopi society because, the women, I guess, in a way really mold you into who you are. And so a Hopi being a matrilineal society, meaning that, whichever village your mother's from, that's the village that you're from.
Yeah.
Whichever clan that your mother belongs to, that's the clan that you belong to. And so, and I think that because Hopi has that perspective, I think that kind of demonstrates the importance of women within our society.
Oh, yeah. So let's go ahead and take a quick break and let's listen to our sponsor here of the podcast.
Nakwet's Wendi Skateboarding. The first Hopi skateboarding brand, Nakwet's Wendi skateboards are not only rideable, but are also pieces of art that can be showcased as well. Nakwet's Wendi Skateboarding is Hopi-owned and one of the first to put Hopi art on skateboards. The owner, Delvin Palalinma, is an avid skateboarder and hopes that his skateboards will inspire others to learn to skate as well as inspire upcoming artists. Nakwet's Wendi comes from the Hopi word friendship. Nakwet's Wendi Skateboarding aims to create a presence for Hopi and indigenous people in the world of skateboarding and art. They can be found on Facebook and Instagram, and to purchase merchandise, they can be found at squareup.com/store/Nakwet's Wendi Skateboarding.
And
Strong Ones is dedicated to exposing cultural traditions of running that exist within many cultures and tribes worldwide through running apparel. Strong Ones is an individually owned business supporting cultural running traditions and supporting local organizations within the Hopi Reservation. They can be found at strongones.myshopify.com. Again, that's strongones.myshopify.com. They are also on Facebook at StrongOnes15. And so I think that because of how important our women are in our society, I think that in comparison to other tribes, at least in the way that I've learned it, is that Hopi women, even I guess on the surface of it, you couldn't really necessarily tell. But when you delve into and learning more about the place that women have in our society, is that in terms of ownership, they own a lot of things in the village, right?
Yeah, actually they do. And so, if you're talking about ownership, they actually own land, they actually own fields, they actually own houses. So I don't know what men own. What do men own?
We own our clothes, I guess.
I own my TV, I should say that.
I own my Xbox. Although technically, I think maybe my wife bought it for me.
So she owns that. So there is a saying that in Hopi that if you do get a divorce, everything that's in the house becomes the woman's. So basically, you leave with the clothes on your back
And your bedroll.
and your bedroll.
Your appa.
Yep, it's basically it. And you go back to mama and cry to her.
And so it's such a, I guess, a juxtaposed situation and compared to the Western society, correct? Because then I guess, you hear about history about the United States, and you hear things like women weren't allowed to vote until, so many years after the voting system was established. Or, other types of things, women didn't own property, I don't think, until a certain point. But at least for Hopis, that it was always the women that owned the lands, that they owned the cornfields, that they owned the houses that, all of us grew up in. And so that even things like, some of the things that we do, like, for us Hopi men that are farmers, when we're farming our field and when it comes time for the harvest, and all of the nut money that we harvest, all of the corn, the beans, the melon, and when that's brought to the female, when that's handed over either to your mother or to your wife, then that becomes hers too as well.
All of everything that we do as male counterparts in the Hopi society becomes the woman.
So I guess in a way it's like when you get paid that the deposit's really going into your wife or to your mother's bank account. And
I never have that problem. I never had that problem before. So
I guess now I really know why you've been single all these years.
Exactly. I am stingy. When I go from this earth here, I want you to take out all my money and just throw it into the hole that I'm in, and I'll just say, I'm keeping my money here.
And so I think that, because I think that that's such a unique, I guess, way of living, or even a unique way of how our society is structured, that it's very much different from, I guess, like maybe the Western or the predominant way of how people live their lives or view their society. And so I guess, instead of us just, talking about it all the time, why don't we get the women's perspective?
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and introduce our guests.
Our special guests.
Our special guests here that are in the studio right now. Well, actually, one is. So...
And so our special guests, if you want to introduce yourselves, but, me and Carl, we kind of use our names as our enemy. What do you call it? Our fake names, so that when we piss people off, that people don't really know who we are. Because Carl's real name is actually DeAndre. I'm not supposed to say that online.
DeAndre. Hey, man, what you going to do, man? I'm DeAndre. Welcome our first guest, Wendi. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody.
And on the phone, we have Marissa.
Hello.
Oh,
there she is.
All right, Marissa.
Marissa and Wendi.
Marissa and Wendi. There are special guests that will be talking with us throughout this podcast here, or this episode here. So let's give them a round of applause.
And so, Marissa and Wendi, you guys have heard our podcast. You heard some of the conversations that we had in season 1. I think that probably our most popular episodes were our Growing Up Res episodes, and, kind of where we talked, reminisced, and remembered some of these experiences that we had growing up out here on the reservation. But if you all can tell our audience out there, what are some unique experiences growing up on the reservation that pertain specifically to the female population?
When I was small, I used to really enjoy harvesting, like lemon and all the different plants, because I also stayed with my grandmother before I was in school. So doing that and making like sisiki and all the different types of tea. And a lot of people just know hohoisi, but there's a couple other ones that we used to pick. So that and doing pottery. Going out and getting the clay and just mixing. Back then, I didn't think it was mixing. I just knew it was to play with clay.
Okay. All right.
And for me, growing up, I grew up in a multi-generational household. So, I grew up in a home with my so'os, my tahas, my mom, and so one of the unique experiences that I have is just taking care of, a big family and cooking a lot. There was a lot of cooking going on, and being around my soul a lot. My mom worked, but we all lived in the same house, so we were home with our soul, and we would be around our soul and watch her and her buddies, all the souls. We actually had a timtsuke inside our house, so all the souls in K-Town gathered there, and they all hung out there and made biki, and I would, get them snacks and feed them, watch them, and, just kind of listen to them talk. And those are some of the cool things that I remember that I really enjoyed, and preparing food for a big home. That was a big part of my life growing up.
That's awesome. Carl, did you ever learn to cook when you were a kid?
No, I never learned to cook when I was a kid.
No?
No. I think someone never taught me how to do the cooking or anything like that. So when I went to college, the first time I went to college, I had no idea what to cook because I only seen So'o cook for like a household of like 7 or 8 people. So I said, okay, I'm gonna try out cooking. So I said, I'm going to make myself, eggs and potatoes and, hot dogs and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get, so it gets like at least 5 or 6 potatoes to feed people. So I said, you know what? I think I can eat 5 or 6 potatoes. So I go ahead and start chopping up the potatoes. And I'm like, this is a lot of potatoes here. What am I going to do? And I was like, oh my God, it's like this, I can't. And I just chopped off all 5 potatoes. And I didn't know that you have to wash them as well too. I didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time. So I said, I think this is what soul does. So I just threw everything in the pot and I just turned it on and I just left it. And it turned mushy. And it's like, how did she get, and I was like, how did she get it to be crispy? Like the potato things. As this is all mushy here. And I'm like, so I call Soul. I'm just like, hey, Soul, how do you get like crispy potato wedgies? And she's like, you put them in the oven. And I'm like, but I put them on the stove. Is that the same thing? And she's like, no, you put it in the oven. How do you do that? How do you do that?
So long story long, you didn't know how to cook potatoes.
I didn't know how to cook potatoes.
So back to Wendi and Marissa. In terms of, I guess, one of the things that I think we had a lot of fun talking about when we were talking about growing up on the res was res slang. So what are some res words that you guys used to use or slang words? Because I know that you guys are from a different part of the reservation that I'm from. So you guys probably weren't saying the nlis as much as munkups were. But what were some words that you guys would say?
Well, I know that we said nli a lot in K-Town. And my cousin, my neighbor next door, she used to say it pretty hard. We used to make fun of her because, she, but I also was raised a lot by my kua'a, who was from Sangopavi. And so I spent a lot of time up there, and something I know, was said often when we were up there, you kind of adapt to your surroundings. So if you're in K-Town, you'll say nli, and if you go to Sangopavi, you'll say nla, and your tongue sticking out of your mouth when you say it. And those are the 2 main slangs that we said in terms of Hopi. There's a lot of other slang that, you say to one another. And somebody just brought one up recently. I can't remember, but it's, as far as Hopi terms or Hopi responses, those are the 2 that I remember the most.
Yeah. I never hung out with girls
it's pretty evident that that's the case, Carl.
I was sort of like that creeper kid in the back and at classroom. I was like, ooh, stay away from Carl.
Not much has changed.
Yeah, but I know that in Palaka it's different, and again, you adapt to your surroundings. So when I got into junior high, I was around I made a lot of friends from that area and their slang. I think Marissa can pick up what some of the words that they say on that side.
I think that another one that we probably didn't say a lot to, that a lot of the women mostly say, is us.
Or usby.
Usby. What does that mean? Well, I guess us is short for usby, but for the non-speakers out there, what does that mean?
To me, usby is just like almost like a whatever, or like a I don't know.
A Schleier.
A Schleier, or kind of like a are you serious type of
Yeah.
thing, maybe?
Yeah, like a usby. Yeah, like are you serious? Almost kind of like a you kind of say it a lot when somebody's squeevy, or like you're kind of like there. So you say that a lot to them.
So
So do you say that to your husband a lot?
Yes, I do.
I believe that. Yeah.
And I think Marissa's back.
So Wissa, we were asking you, Marissa, what some of the slang that you remember saying growing up.
I know when I was little, we used to say like ish, and it's still like that.
It's
Or ish, and then like when I'm from Palaka or Kisomoli, but I lived in Cape Town until I was in college.
Yeah.
So I had like the Third Mesa slang too, but like I used to always be annoyed because the biggest thing we would say at Palaka was
That's the one I was waiting for.
So Marissa, how would you use that in a sentence?
You would say after every statement.
So it's like a period.
Like,
Yeah.
We're running. Look at that bush. This girl's silly. You just used it every single time, and I remember my mom like, "I'm gonna put chili in your mouth if you keep saying that."
Look at that guy's hair.
Yeah. And it was everybody that was with you said it all at the same time.
They're like chicken, sort of like, right?
Yeah, but now you hear after everything.
And then well, Marissa, I don't know if you said it, but the other one too that I don't think we said a whole lot on this podcast was is.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the is.
Despite what the Navajos would have you believe, it was actually our Hopi women that were saying that a whole lot, right?
Is.
It's like it's short for is Anna or is Tati, or it's like it's an exaggeration of a measurement, seems like almost. Or
Oh yeah.
Now my daughter says that, and I'm like, "Can you really say that in the house?"
Is.
one of the funniest things about slang is there was one that we picked up in junior high with my Palaka friends, and we'd say "ee," like we'd like say some statement, and we'd be like "ee," and when I'm with my friend, we still say it. Only when I'm with her, that's when it comes out.
All right. So let's go ahead and take another break, and let's go ahead and listen to our next sponsor that's sponsoring this video here. Dene Mahapi Arts is a modern art made with traditional values. Dene is involving artists who is innovative through her artwork, while incorporating contemporary modern trends and bright colors being the base of her work. Hopi traditional elements is her main focus, giving her artwork an intricate finish. Though she's living in today's modern society, she paints meaning and value of traditional designs to showcase and symbolizes her upbringing out on Hopi. She specializes in customized painted earrings to her colorful bright canvas paintings and much more. Dene can be found on Instagram at D Mahapi Arts, where you can find and support her one-of-a-kind art pieces.
And we're back. And so talking about slang words, but if we can get serious here for a moment.
All right, go ahead.
And so talking about the women's perspective, like I said, in terms of this perspectives that you both have had in terms of growing up on the reservation, who were some women that you both might have looked up to growing up as children on the reservation?
I'll answer first. I think the biggest ones were my tutsus, and that in First Mesa area we call our grandma tutsu. And it was my dad's mom, my sister Lois, who I really learned a lot of our traditions, our beliefs from. And it wasn't until I was older that I got close with my sister Betty. Maybe when I was like in 6th grade, I finally started being more with them. But both and their sisters, so I was fortunate enough that my grandparents lived across the road from each other, and all their sisters have their houses right next to each other. So if I was with Sister Lois and my grandma Clarice and everybody else would always be around because they're always doing something or preparing something. And Sister Betty, my Sister Betty on the other side of the road, we had our clan relatives, and so them, and then my mom, and my mom's probably the next biggest person. She's really strict in our beliefs, and sometimes the way things are done now, she's like, nope, that's not how we do it. And if they're going to do it like that, let them do it like that. But this is our beliefs, and this is why we do the things that we do. So she's somebody I really admire because she's not afraid to step up and contribute the way she knows how to do it. And then lastly, my dad's sisters and his clan sisters. He has a big family, but everything that goes on in my life, the other brothers and sisters' lives are right there. They're still learning too, but they're teaching. We're all learning at the same time, and they're still teaching us. So those are the women that I really looked up to when I was growing up, and I'm so grateful because they were older and I was young. I sometimes feel like I'm an old person. I have an old person spirit, even though I'm probably the youngest one.
Kind of like Carl.
In the family.
I'm a young buck yet, so I have big antlers.
Yeah, I think that I can relate to what Marissa, as far as her role models. There were 3 people, when they think back on who the 3 key people for me, it was my soul. Her name was Mildred, and my big mom, my mom's sister. We called her Big Mom growing up.
Uh-huh.
And then my mom, and it's so funny because Marissa and I grew up together because my mom and her mom were really close, and those things that she mentioned in terms of our moms being strict in how things should be done, that was my mom. And so like with my mom, she scared me. She I had to think about this. Did I really look up to her? And I did, but I was scared of her because she was always correcting me. She was always saying things shouldn't be done like this, or this is wrong. But my soul, I didn't get to spend too much time with her. She passed away by the time I was finishing elementary school. But what I look up to the most about her was her welcome, her how she was so welcome to everybody. We had all of our cousins that spent the entire summer with us in K-Town. They had all these rooms made up, and there was like sometimes 20 of us in the home. And she was always happy to have everybody home. And I was telling my husband that I didn't know, a lot. And she got a stroke when I was probably in 3rd grade, but I remember watching her make cinnamon rolls. And she didn't, I was standing at the table watching her. And that's how I make my cinnamon rolls today, from what I remember watching her at that time. My big mom was the one that I looked up to the most because she was nice, she was kind, and she lived in Grand Canyon for the entire time that I've been here, but she came home every weekend, and to this day she still does. I mean, right now she can't because of what's going on in the world, but she comes home every single weekend. And she was the one that taught me all the skills that I have in the kitchen. She's the one that I looked up to in terms of providing that emotional side of, you know, being there for family. And so those are the three people that I look up to growing up.
So a lot of cooking.
Yeah, so
A lot of cooking.
man, and it is rare that nowadays Hopi girls have some sort of role model that they look up to, especially with like an older generation role model, because nowadays, you know, the generation that they're looking up to is like like, you know, all these
You want a buoy there for the drowning that you're doing in the water there?
I'm trying to think. I'm
picture.
trying to paint a picture right now, and I'm trying to Kim Kardashian kind of.
Why don't you leave it to the professionals?
No, what I was trying to say was that, like, you know, nowadays young girls look at like role models of like Kim Kardashian or like, you know,
Cardi B.
Yeah, Cardi B or what was the other?
Marissa, does WAP really stand for we're at Palaka? So I have a question. I have a question for you two, since you both kind of told us that you both have experience at a very young age, learning how to cook and cook for vast amounts of people. How do you make your fry bread?
Nah.
Is it a secret
Why
recipe
does it
that?
have to be fried bread? Why can't it be Vicky or something?
Like store-bought bread. Why can't it just be store-bought bread?
In my sister's case, store-bought bread.
That's funny. My sister-in-laws and both of them, they always say, "You be happy when you make your so that people who eat it will be happy too." And you always make extra, whatever you're cooking, you always, because you never know who's going to stop by. And it was true, you know, somebody always came by and they always had cookies or they always had bread or something to offer them that was fresh, still on the table. So to this day, I still practice that.
Yeah, see, I never knew about that because that's what Soul always does. You know, she always tries to invite other people that just walk by the house. And that's just Hopi tradition of a woman inviting everybody to come and eat her food, basically. And that's why she makes extra. And I'm like, Soul, don't make, you know, we're not going to eat all of this thing here. And I don't want to be eating beans for a week.
Okay, let me Hopify that question. What's the secret to making good yeast bread?
I think we make it differently.
Yeah.
Do you measure? And I think I already know the answer to that. And why not?
Do you measure?
No, we don't measure. You just use your hand and you just know.
Is there a recipe? Is there a recipe online that you can follow? Does Martha Stewart do this?
I know that from like Palaka area, we mix our dry ingredients first, and then we add liquid ingredients, like the other way around.
Yeah, I noticed the differences in that bilaviki when it's made in the different areas. They say that like I've noticed that in Palaka they try to make their dough tough. And they kind of set it out, and because they want it like a certain way, and then I've been raised, you know, differently. To when we do our wet ingredients first, and then the limni goes in last. So that I don't know. I didn't realize that you guys did dry first.
They just throw in dry things. They just keep on throwing dry things, and then up here they're just like just doing the mixing.
I guess we'll have to ask the first Mesa men and the third Mesa men. You know, do you like your bread like your women tough? Or I guess on our side it's do you like?
I said the dough is tougher than how we make it, but it turns out really good.
Well, I guess that goes to show that
you make your dough tough if you're gonna bake it outside the oven.
Yeah.
ask the Palaka women, do you beat your men with the tough bread or what?
I think where you're trying to.
There you go.
Ask these guys.
Just keep on throwing a Lee in there.
Another question to make things a little bit serious. Do you guys have wussy hands? And why is it called wussy hands?
My 12-year-old boy mind just kind of came out there. So
I have gussy hands.
Me too.
I think Carl has wussy hands too, but for a different reason.
So for our non-Hopi speakers out there, Kwesi means two different things in Hopi language. So one means a body part, and the other means toughness of the hands.
Okay, so getting us back on track. Well, I guess that both of you did talk about how you, at least as in your upbringings, were taught the importance of serving within your household as Hopi women, and then the importance of serving within the overall village community. And so, Carl and I, this has kind of always been a big dialogue over a lot of our episodes in terms of kind of living this two-sided life, I guess. Navigating the Hopi life, the Hopi way of life, and then the Pahana way of life. For where you guys are at right now in your lives, how involved are you with the ceremonies and other things that go on out on the reservation?
Well, for me, I like to think I'm pretty involved. And a big reason for that is because I lost my mom about 7 years ago, and I'm the oldest female of the family and of my mom's children. And one of the things that was constantly said to me was that you're the oldest now. You have to take care of all these things. So I have to, I've accepted the fact that I can't move away from home because there's so much that I have to do here, as a mom, as a soul, as a sister, as a godmother, in order to completely do all of these things that we are supposed to do. It's best if we're home. And that's something, and that's what I understand now with my mom. My mom never left, and I watched her be there for my koa, be there for my soul, day in and day out. And so, those are the types of, I guess, values I learned. And so, sometimes moving away sounds tempting. There's all these things you want a better education for your kids, or, there's just there's no opportunity. And I've kind of come to accept that I have to make my opportunities happen here because I have to be here for all of these things that being a mom and a soul and a sister are involved with.
Wait, you're a soul?
I'm a soul.
You're a soul?
Yeah.
Dang.
My brothers.
Aye.
Yeah, I'm a soul to two beautiful pumpkin girls out in Sapalavi.
I'm just going to keep saying that. Wow. I never knew that.
And that's because with my mom being gone, I took over her role in that for my brother's girls.
Oh, okay.
So that I'm now my brother's girls' grandmother.
Okay.
Doing the whole naming now. And everything. Yeah, not my own girls.
Oh, okay. Like, that's just is. So, Marissa, on the same notes, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that the same with Wendi. We've lived off the reservation, but close enough to be home to come home. We lived in Flagstaff for the past 10 years, and it was just a way of getting a job and getting experience. But then being able to come home, and then when I had of my own, and we have probably 13 or 14 godchildren. it became surreal, that our responsibilities for home and tradition is way more important. And so we moved home, and part of that was because, we wanted our children to be immersed in our whole calendar cycle of things and not just coming home. And that's something, that I try to teach my godchildren and my nieces and nephews is, when something happens, it just doesn't happen. There's a whole bunch of prep work behind it. And I want them to be able to know that and learn it and know that it's not hard work, but it is hard work, but not to think of it like that, but it's just part of our cycle of life, not just for ourselves, but, for the whole world, so we can continue to thrive. So, yeah, I agree with Wendi as well.
And so I think going on that too, I think that something else that's really unique to Hopi society is that, a lot of us nowadays, we are all employed to some degree. At least a lot of us are, and, a lot of us are employed full time. And so I think that, one of the things that I guess can make it tough, when you're living out here on the reservation full time, is that oftentimes you're trying to support your family in a monetary way. But then also too, you're still trying to uphold your duties and responsibilities in regards to our culture, our religion, and so both for the male and the female side, that we both have to kind of commit I guess a pretty good amount of our own time to this ceremonial calendar that we have. So, speaking to that, what would you say that, some of the difficulties are, or, some of the unique ways that you've had to manage not only being a mother, a wife, and then also having a profession as well?
For me, I always tell my employer that if I get offered the job, that my family and my cultural responsibilities come first. And I give them a heads up because my mom told me when I first started working, I expect you to be home during these kinds of years. And it doesn't matter what's going on outside of Hopi, you have to be home. So whether I was supposed to speak at a national conference or whatever, she's like, nope, you need to be home. So I let them know ahead of time, these are the times that I'm going to request off. And I'm just letting you guys know before you hire me. But then on the other hand, just driving back and forth at night and going home maybe early. We've done this several times a week. Come home in the morning to do what we had to do, then drive back, and then come back in the evening. So making multiple trips a day, back and forth. But I think, just being honest with work and stuff and putting your priorities where you want them to be. At least something helped me.
Sort of just like keeping your priorities in check of like what needs to be done out home versus what needs to be done in the Bahana world, because it is hard for women to do those types of things, and it is hard for Hopi men and women to do that as well too. Is when they do have a profession, they struggle with that whole idea of trying to be traditional and trying to be professional at the same time.
I have to agree with what Marissa said in terms of the difficulties. I think those are the two main difficulties, and thankfully I've been able to have been employed a majority of my adult life with a Hopi organization that I was able to, they were very understanding of it. But the tough part was when I lived away from home, the distance. And even now, living in Tuba, because, I want it to be close to work instead of driving back and forth from Kikotsmovi to Munkapi. And then now my work is here. And so now I struggle with that. And, but I moved to Tuba thinking like this is going to make it easier for me. But like that, when I first had my first granddaughter, my my mom, you don't cut corners when you're doing these things, when you're taking care of them. You should always be there every day taking care of that baby. And so I did for 20 days. I drove every morning. I woke up early in the morning and I drove from Tuba to Sapalavi for 20-some days so I could do what was supposed to, because I know my mom's above watching me and, is going to be upset if I don't do it the way that she taught me. And then, just doing those kinds of things is always hard. Having somebody, even though they're not here, that you kind of always feel like they're watching you and that they're criticizing, how you're doing things. So those are the things that kind of keep me going and trying to do things that I think my mom would be proud of.
Yeah, I understand all too well about that. And because, because Sol has a lot of kids that she washed the hair and stuff like that. And it was up to her that she did that. She drove, because I didn't want to take her every morning to do that kind of stuff because I'm too lazy to take Sol places. So, but anyway, it's a woman's job, and woman's job is a lot harder than a man's job, I guess you could say. In a Hopi setting, I guess.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And so I think that we have time for at least one more question, and then, we'll close out. But I think that, and Carl and I have talked about this before on previous episodes, kind of, just trying to be a Hopi in the 21st century, I guess, and, still trying hard to carry the values and the lessons that you learned on the reservation from a traditional Hopi context, and then moving out, obtaining your education, but then you kind of around in that modern type of society where the ideas of gender roles are kind of being phased out, or the ideas of I guess how it used to be back in the day are kind of perceived as old school or kind of I guess cavemanish ways. So how do you guys what are your perspectives on Western ideas of feminism and how it affects Hopi cultural gender roles?
I have a funny story that can kind of relate to that. So growing up, like I said, I took care of my kwa'a. My kwa'a was always going to his village at Sangopavi, but he'd come home. But every day we had to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, ready for him. And it was something that we had to do, that we just knew. And so I remember one time my taha was, saying in this kind of annoyed voice, like, you guys just, go ahead, just sits there and you guys just serve him left and right. And, like kind of made a comment like he was almost like he was disgusted with it. And I kind of just looked at him surprised, because that's just how I knew we were supposed to be. And, like I kind of see, now in where I'm at today in terms of, we need our men to, we want our men, we want to be equal, and we want the man to cook too, or we want him to wash the dishes too, and it's funny because I get dinner ready, and I set the table, I told everyone to come eat, and, my husband, we wait for him to come home from the field, and that's when that happens. And he was sitting there, and I wasn't done setting the table, but there was some food there, and he asked for something. He kind of does this often, and he'll ask, and it's like he could just simply just get up and grab the salt that's at the other end of the table, but he'll sit there, and I'll watch him, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, you can get up and get that salt. And so I must be saying that to him often, because the other night, I asked for my drink, and my daughter, she told me, she said, you can get that. You can get up and get it yourself. And I looked at her and I was like, Mano, you don't talk to me like that. And she was, real innocent. And she said, well, that's what you say all the time to Daddy when we're eating dinner. And, and I had to catch myself because, I mean, I understand. I understand that, because I have expectations too on how he contributes, but I had to think back to my ko'a, and my taha and, those things. But, back then it wasn't an issue for me. And growing up now and, just some of these things, I have to remind myself and go back to how I was taught, and because I catch myself. So that's just one of the many, examples of how we expect, the male side to contribute, when in Hopi, there's a lot of things that, men shouldn't be doing. And it's the women's job. And it sounds very, I don't know what's that word, not the men's side, like, women should be doing this or, that.
Oh, like masochists. It's more like
Gender roles.
Gender, yeah. Yeah, I understand.
But yeah, but it's just, for me, I was taught that, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know where I'm not supposed to be. I know what, those types of things as far as what I was taught. And so I try to watch myself.
And then Marissa, if you want to add.
When she said that, I was thinking the same thing, because my thoughts on that were like, all through college, I was part of this feminist group where we would, protest about different feminist issues, and we wanted like the neutral gender bathrooms and all this stuff. And then I come home and I'm like, okay, now I can't think like that. I have to, just abide by what I was taught and, kind of serve the men in my family, which I have no problem doing for my papa and my tahas and my dads and my brothers. But then when it comes to my husband in our own home, like I have a different expectations from him. I expect him to have me. And it wasn't so until we probably had kids that I expected him to be more of a house around the house and in the kitchen and like not cooking or that, but like, setting the table or something like that. So I think it definitely has changed over generations, because my sister, I think about her, my sister Betty, how she did everything for my papa and even ironed his lomos and his socks and everything. And I don't think I can do that, know, but it definitely has changed. And when we're on the mesa, when something's going on, I have to, okay, we have, the boys, and we have my nephews now that they're older helping us wash dishes and stuff. And that's something that, we teach them nowadays, is you help out where you can when, of course, they're not Wimpka, so they're all around us all the time, but, they're willing to help us, and I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, and like when I was younger, of course, Soul taught me the different, just simple household, like clean up your toys, put away your Power Man Rangers, and put away different things like that, and it's just, I guess, just helping her out in that sense there. So, I think it's come down to that time there till we part ways.
But Soul refused to iron your underwear, huh? Aye. Well, we'd like to thank our guests.
Yeah, I like to thank
Marissa and Wendi for being here with us. And then, on that note, on closing out today's episode, we definitely like to send some shout outs, thank some supporters, some folks that have really been generous in supporting our group. We got Crystal Dennison. We also got Tanya, and I'm really sorry, I know I'm probably not going to say this correctly, Blue Galuk. And then also another shout out to our boy Millard Kawaniama.
Ah, yeah, he's actually our greatest sponsor for this podcast. Thank you, Millard, again. Give him a round of applause.
And then also two big shout outs again to our sponsors, Navakuku-Adams Skateboarding, Strong Ones Running Company, Terraform Development, and then also Dene Mahapi Arts.
Ooh, Dene Mahapi Arts. What do they do?
Arts.
All right. Well, I think that we're going to wrap this whole thing up. Thank you again.
And a reminder, we are on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
So if you are listening to us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our videos.
Oh, yeah. Subscribe. Hit the button down below and, just go ahead and subscribe to us. And also hit that notification button too as well. So you can be informed when our next podcast is up and running.
And we got a special project coming up. And so if you want to subscribe to our YouTube now,
oh yeah,
you'll be notified of that very quickly.
Oh yes, subscribe. And thank you again. I'm your host, Carl, and this is J-Man, my best friend. Thank you for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. That took the whole breath out of me.
So long.